Film is an art form, and it's still a fairly new one at that, actually. The oldest films recorded were around 120, 130 years ago, maybe even before that. And putting film to sound is about as old as your great-grandparents. It used to be so expensive to make films too, but now you can basically do that from your phone. That's kind of what they do on YouTube or TikTok, Instagram, Facebook video. God, sorry, I just got so sick saying that. And the best kind of film, I would argue, isn't one that is good, but one that is remembered. You can have your stories like The Secret Life of Pets, or its sequel, or your latest Marvel Cinematic Universe flick. Those movies are good in that they're produced in a big budget Hollywood studio, or animation studio for that matter, overseen by executives with money signs in their eyes, determined by focus groups and screen tests, and they usually got a big name actor in it that you might recognize. But how much do you think these films will be remembered? Because I can hardly whatsoever remember what happened in either of those films. Like, I know bits and pieces and maybe some of the important parts, but even if I enjoyed them while shoving popcorn down into my mouth hole, I don't know. It was a nice waste of time. But I do remember films like Palindromes. There's a reason they showed it in my film analysis and critique course over at UNT. Basically, this film has a main character, one 13-year-old girl named Aviva, who is portrayed by a plethora of different actors based on the context of the scene or narrative beat, and it involves real controversial stuff like abortions and underage sex and killing abortion doctors and all that. That's a film right there. Also, hey, anyone? Tommy Wiseau's The Room? Hello? It's been remembered and so memed to death, basically to death, that they made a movie about the phenomenon based on a book detailing its behind-the-scenes shenanigans. So, what film do I think should be remembered? Now, I have some trouble finding a film to review for this Halloween season, one that's not just good, but worth remembering. Scooby-Doo movies aren't really my forte. There's a video you can watch about them that's made by Jello Apocalypse. The furriest one I could think of out of that list was Ghoul School, which was kind of I could have talked about Five Nights at Freddy's 2 as well, but I wasn't sure how much more I wanted to talk about the series or what would make this newer review fresh compared to the old one, what all I could have added to it. It's whatever. So after perusing YouTube using the exact keywords, horror movie animals, I see a possible nugget of gold. Rise of the Animals. So why this film? Why does it exist? Is it even good? What's worth remembering about it? And ultimately, how furry is it? So where do I begin with this movie? I can always start and say that it had a budget of around $7,000. Yeah, really, that's like 2 Lemon Brat suits, or like a couple of More for Less or Made for You suits. Man, fursuits are expensive nowadays. Based on that info, how do you picture their portrayal of rabid animals that just start attacking people one day? Yeah, it's not pretty. They really tried with their shoestring budget with puppets and 3D CGI, but it's not great. For reference, Paranormal Activity came out 2 years prior and had around twice the budget. And it was just a spooky ghost demon. They just have one monster to worry about. This movie has like a bunch. You might be reminded of another man versus nature story as well with an even worse budget, Birdemic. To be honest, that film has been beaten to the ground, like a dead bird carcass on a busy freeway, mainly from its poor acting, atrocious editing, and just nonsensical everything. Rise of the Animals is actually a bit more coherent and competently made, which you would think would make it a bit more boring, but it still got a pretty uproarious laughter out of me. I honestly got bored of Birdemic after my one and only time watching it. It's just a forced meme at this point. A dead forced meme, I think. But for Rise of the Animals, man, what is this even about? So we got awkward pizza delivery straight man and possibly the best actor of this who is also named Wolf. That is his character's first name. It's Wolf. It's not a nickname. He is joined by his best friend, a Stevie T lookalike who's equally as annoying.
For some reason, looking at Willie's picking hand, all I can think is...
You can only be so over the top and do the cerebral paralysis face. Tasteful. Very tasteful. They join forces to deliver a pizza over to a cabin in the middle of nowhere, trying to race the clock. But once they discover that it's an all-girl party cabin with lots of booze, and this being a screwball, ultra-low-budget horror flick, they decide to drop their plans of seeing Babies with Rabies 3D.
No one's gonna go see the premiere of Babies with Rabies 3D.
And just party with a bunch of girls. You know, probably a much better investment. Unbeknownst to them, animals of all species, domestic and wild, are just wreaking havoc and straight up committing murder against every human being within eyesight. Again, no reason given or discovered. Maybe they escaped from Super Animal World, I don't know. So after some shenanigans, the animals attack, and it's bloody. They throw literal buckets of blood everywhere in these fight scenes. Fight scenes? Gore scenes? What do you call it in horror films? I don't know. I would have appreciated a Tarantino-style blood sprinkler, but I think I'm satisfied with how they managed their on-screen gore. That is tastefully poor execution. I have personally bought some of their gore special effects from Spirit Halloween, like this amputated hand, quote unquote, but really that's the point. It's supposed to be bad and screwball and, again, stupidly low budget. The music is even done by some random composer guy in a janky local band from Austin, Texas. Yes, I looked it up. This is filmed on location in Texas. You can tell by the license plate, by some of the road names. But if I had one complaint, just one, it would be the script. That would probably use a bit more direction or utter insanity. I'll go more into detail with this later, but this is basically the story of a young man who learns not to think with his second brain and see what's more important in life, kind of. We can talk about this more in the spoilers section if you care to really save yourself from the spoilers of this epic story. Whatever, if you care, just whatever. The first half of the movie is probably the best part and really captures the tone of a knowing parody of schlocky low-budget horror. I mean, the first 2 minutes of this film alone, it hooked me like one of those fishy hooky things, whatever they're called. But then it starts to taper off during the road trip in search for the main protagonist's potential buddy. It picks up whenever there's a monstrous animal attack, and thankfully they kill off the best friend via giant alligator. The ongoing drama of Wolf and Sam, the buddy's name, it fizzles out to the point where, by the end, Sam basically disappears. She doesn't die. I mean, she's fine. It's just the film forgets about her. She didn't even matter, even though she was the driving plot device for this whole movie. Wolf could have just went to Mexico in his crazy dad's safe house, but nah, I gotta save Sam because, sex. Hedonism. There's also something to be said about intentional bad movies writing intentionally bad comedy, and it's a shame because it's just not funny. The thing that makes comedy and horror in action, even when done poorly, what makes it great and what makes it remembered is that it's unexpected. It was hard to watch the wooden girl they snag along with their trails, nagging Stevie Boy and calling him a poop face. That's not fun or enjoyable or all that unexpected. And I'm not sure how much I buy the chemistry between Wooden Girl and Doofy McWolf either. To be honest, I don't get most romantic subplots or on-screen chemistry, however they call it. It adds nothing to the movie a good 80 to 90% of the time, again, in my opinion, and it's only there to pander to those, those filthy f***ing heterosexuals perverting our youth with their heteronormative values, god damn it. Wouldn't it be more interesting if Stevie T and Wolf were the ones to survive and not Wooden Girl and Wolfie Dude? Maybe their friendship could be the one to save them both and be more cohesive, and maybe they'd make out a little bit. I don't know. Just spitballing ideas. Okay, spoilers over. Let's get to the part you've been all asking for. Please stop. I can hear you yelling at your monitors and phone. Please stop the noise! How furry is Rise of the Animals? Let's pry open this animalistic hot mess of a movie proper. I will be using 3 metrics for this section of the video: cast, furriness, and relevancy. Let's start with cast, or the proportion of main characters and otherwise that be furry. Despite having a main character with the actual first name of Wolf, this carnivorous animals flick is solely focused on the humans, unfortunately. I mean, obviously so, but we've had stories where a zombie or vampire or demon is sympathized or empathized with and turns towards the good side. I mean, now that's the whole premise of Demon Slayer. You need to watch Demon Slayer, by the way, it's on Hulu. This might end up being the weakest aspect of this film, since furries do like to watch animals and animal characters, sympathize with them, learn about them, sometimes even more than human characters. For example, just be honest. When you watched Tangled, you know Tangled, the Rapunzel story? Did you watch for the magical journey where a gifted princess falls for a dashing, chaotic, good rogue? Or did you root for the horse that acted like a dog? Yeah, that's what I thought. A missed opportunity indeed, since we could have gotten some goofy-ass camaraderie with the rabid animal buddy attacking other animals and stuff. By the way, for those that have some difficulty with the English language, there are 2 ways to spell camaraderie. There's this way and this way. Just a free tip. Anyway, for this point, I will have to give it a rating of low. Next is furriness, or how visually furry these characters look. As stated before, this film is low budget. The ferocious creatures are a mix of stuffed animals, puppets, 3D animation, sometimes live animals, though very brief and never in harm's way, thankfully. With such a variety of styles, you can express a rabid animal attacking unsuspecting human victims. They really went out of their way to show just what an awful and cheap movie monster can truly look like. Then again, when's the next time you're gonna see a movie where one of the protagonists will punch a horse and you root for them to do so? Granted, none of these animals are anthropomorphic, and that's the most damning part, isn't it? I mean, it could be, but there's a line of thinking when it comes to making horror movies and stories and all that, of what makes something truly fearful or horrifying. It's this little thing called fear of the unknown. If you know what a bad guy or monster is like, what their motivation is, maybe what American burger chain it prefers, then you can rationalize it and figure out ways to defeat it. Probably with a good snack on a burger. But no, we literally have just nature as a force, in the form of wild and domestic critters with sharp teeth. All of them have sharp teeth, by the way, even the herbivores. And if you cannot stop that, you can't control it, and it's coming right after you anyway. That is the fear of the unknown. But anyway, they look like real-life animals. Sometimes they are. And not the lovable anthros that we furries expect from our media. The most anthropomorphic thing we could have in this film is the red mohawk sporting ape that tries to get into their car as they're escaping.
Any chance you got any bananas in here?
And that's mainly because this creature is bipedal. The more realistic and purposefully ugly designs take away any stylistic points too. I mean, there's a style to the ugliness, but this is just, they're trying to make it look awful. So I might have to give this a medium low for furriness, unfortunately. Finally, we have relevancy, or how relevant their animal or furry nature is to the main plot. As we've discussed before, all animals, everywhere, are the antagonizing force of this film. Their goal is to kill and maim every single human on the planet. We don't know their endgame, but we do know they want to kill us all. Maybe you could add more depth if there was some kind of freak nuclear blast or science experiment gone wrong, though that would be kind of cliche, even if it would add to their relevancy to the plot. But you know, nah, don't need that. Just bloodthirsty animals, just cuz. This isn't the only movie where man versus nature doesn't really delve into why nature is versus man, but that's just sometimes how nature is. There's a reason we call it force of nature. There's no reason for hurricanes or typhoons or whatever to plow through a major city or island, but they do anyway. I mean, okay, fine, there is a scientific reason for how they happen and how they form, but never why in terms of purpose. Life is random and unfair. It's pandemonium, just like a deer biting off your fucking hand. You could also argue, as a film critic, that nature fighting against Wolf and his buds are just some sort of metaphor for all the obstacles that he faces in life when he realizes and learns that his denial and then pursuit of hedonistic sex is not the way to go. But I don't know if the filmmakers really thought that deeply about this story. Just a hunch. Ultimately, this is more human-centric than animal-centric, so I'll stick with the rating of medium for relevancy. So let's break this down, shall we? We have a low in cast, a medium low in furriness, and medium in relevancy. That boils down to a final rating of medium low. It's not that furry, but I argued in the beginning of this video that films are better when they're remembered rather than when they're good. And this film is obviously not good at all. I hope I've shown you a flick worth remembering though. It's like stumbling upon a random and poorly made movie you and your friends could laugh at, except the people behind it are basically in on the joke as well. If you enjoy dumb movies like this that are knowing parodies and comedies, there's always movies like Thanksgiving. There's Deep Blue Sea, which isn't so much in-your-face comedy as it is just subversive. As for Rise of the Animals, while it seems a bit forced in some regards and could have really been vamped up with its ridiculousness in other spots, I think this is the perfectly fine, dodgy piece of entertainment for this Halloween season. And the best part is, it's not even scary. So you don't have to have that friend who's like, oh, I don't know, I might back out of this, guys. It's too scary. Yeah, no, you're staying for this mess, okay? Link to the whole movie down below in the description. It's free on YouTube. Thank you, Kings of Horror. And before I wrap things up, there was a EF3 tornado that just rampaged through parts of Dallas on the 20th of this month. In the month of October, we may enjoy our little spooks and scares, but the real horror of life is when you lose your home or a loved one to a natural disaster like this. We want to avoid that. We want people to not have to experience that. I would consider you donate to Texas Baptist Men this month. They have been aiding victims of this major tornado and giving relief via chainsawing down bent and damaged trees, flood and fire recovery, even spiritual and emotional care. I'm usually more skeptical of religious organizations and institutions, but you can trust me on this one. You can also volunteer if you're local to the DFW area, but donations through their website are still perfectly good. Heck, I know people that have personally been affected by this. Not in a major way, but we do have one less bowling place that was a big meetup over here in Dallas. Rest in peace, USA Bowl. If you know of any other charities and direct action that you can do for your community to make sure they have a little less actual fear in their lives, go ahead and do that too. But until then, this has been Gregor.
I had rabies.
Reindeer with How Furry Is It? You can find my social media down in the description. That would be my Telegram, my Twitter, my Instagram. I also have a Discord server just for fans of this YouTube series that I do. It is open to the public, but you can get special perks if you are part of my Patreon. Just donate $1 or more per month to me. You can get early access to videos. You can get special chat rooms dedicated to whichever rank you are on my Patreon. You can suggest videos if you donate enough. It's pretty good. Go ahead and check it out. Again, down in the description below, my social media, my Patreon, my Discord server. You can like this video or dislike it. I won't be too sad about it. You can leave a comment if something just outright made you want to speak onto your computer screen or your phone. Like you didn't even need to type it with your fingers or hands or whatever. You just screamed right into the nearest device that you could find. And that's okay. You can also subscribe if you want to. Just go ahead and watch a few more videos before you do that, just to make sure you know what you're getting into, mister. You can also check out a playlist of all the How Furry videos that I've did so far, even the really crappy early ones. And you too can enjoy some more anthro-analysis and antler antics.
Time to realize
accident.
What the hell? What kind of accident?
Well, I took this here axe and I accidentally cut him. Get it? Accident.